It's just, okay. All right. Well, Mark, we've had a chance to sit around here and talk a bit while we've been cranking up for this interview. But first of all, it's good to see you again.
Thanks, same, Bob.
And let's talk a little bit about St. Elsewhere before we get into the real reason you're here. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Okay. You're in your third season. Does it look like you'll go for a fourth?
We've already been picked up, Bobbie, for a fourth year, which on a show like St. Elsewhere is nice because we're not used to hearing this early. And so we knew maybe a month before we ended shooting. We ended 3 weeks ago, and we're planning to go back June 6th for the fourth year, and that's going to be like 3 weeks of shooting in Boston right off the top of the show, so it'll be interesting.
Do you have any idea about any changes, additions, or anything that might be coming?
Well, there's a couple of cast members, I guess, that aren't going to continue with the show. I don't know that I'm able to say who those are. The audience will find that out come next year.
One of them is not you, I presume.
Right. One of them is not, I don't think. I mean, I can go home and find that that's not true. But it'll still be the same kind of ensemble format. It's year 4, so storylines get a little bit harder to go after than they were in years 1 and 2 and 3. But we've got real talented writers and a real talented cast, and I think it'll continue the same kind of rating climb as it has enjoyed over the past 2 years.
The people, and I don't want to you to betray any confidence that you're holding, but the people who might not be back, are they major characters going on to something else, or?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, yeah. We had, like last year at this time, there were 17 reoccurring characters on St. Elsewhere, and now we're down to 9. So some of those have had storyline exits, and some of them haven't, and that kind of goes along with the theory of the executive producer of the show, which is Bruce Paltrow, and if folks don't want to be part of it, they sure don't have to be, and that's pretty much the way it operates there.
Do the changes affect the show in any way as far as you're concerned?
Well, I think. I mean, you work character relationships, and you're given what you're given, the writers give you, and you go to work on that each week. But other than that, other than missing certain people because you like them or whatever, we all like each other pretty much. We get along well. We don't exactly go out and have dinner with each other every night, but it's true ensemble work there, and everybody respects everybody, and we like each other. So, it's business as usual. You go back to work and you make do with what they give you to do, and if there are less characters there or even more characters there than there were the year before, you just try to, dance with who brung you when that comes to that.
Is there anything that you wish the writers would do as far as your character is concerned?
Yeah, I'd like him to have more to do. For starters, I mean, I'm anxious to take Caldwell a little bit away from the hospital, to show a little bit the extremes of his personality and what goes on outside of his surgical procedure. It's tough because he's a plastic surgeon, and plastic surgeons are generally involved in a big, large public teaching hospital like St. Eligius in very specific cases. I mean, the burn victims earlier this year, the neurofibromatosis case with the elephant man's disease later in the year, those are like major storylines. So I'm looking for him to try to find some place of operating in there where it can be more continuous, and then those big storylines can come off of that. I'd like to see that happen. I'd like to see the extremes of his character come out a little bit more.
You were telling me that you're doing a movie of the week for television. Which network is that?
It's for NBC.
Good.
It's a 2-hour.
Good. And you're doing that with Tom Selleck.
Right.
When do you start that?
We're supposed to start around the 20th of May. It's a project that I personally own. My production company, Wings, has owned it for 4.5 years, and it's been that long trying to get it made. It's basically a volleyball story, which is where Tom's interest peaked originally, but we go back to acting school in the early 70s, and that's where I knew him from, and we've stayed pretty much in contact since that time. But as this date gets closer here, I mean, the first draft of the script is due in 3 days, and it's getting real frightening for me because it's coming real close to a reality, and I'm excited by it.
Is the story based on any true incident?
It's a true story. It's right now tentatively entitled Kilgore, and Kirk Kilgore, the person who the project is about, was perhaps an idol of mine when I was at UCLA. He was about 4 years ahead of me. He was a masterful volleyball player, both on the sand outdoors and also indoors, and had the prettiest girl on campus. And I can still remember walking down the quad there on campus, and there were like 30,000 undergraduate students, and the place would part when Kirk and his girlfriend walked through, because they were like blessed. I mean, they were the most amazing couple you've ever seen. And his dream had always been to play for his country, and to that end, he gave up a lot of money professionally to continue his amateur status, and he went to Italy to play and practice for the national teams. And while he was in Italy, a freak accident doing a forward roll in an agility drill, and he crushed the 7th vertebrae in his neck, and he's a quadriplegic. That's pretty much where the high point of our story starts, though we will have to show, obviously, what he had before and what was taken away to make that effect felt. It's a story of friendship. It's a story of friendships developing. It's a story of a character developing through adversity, or what most of us would see as adversity, and yet having at the end more of a positive, uplifting outlook on life perhaps than he ever would have had he had not had the injury. It's an important story, and I hope it's handled that way, and I think the start of the packaging that we have putting this together, and with the network we have, they've stood behind that idea of quality.
Where is he now?
He's the volleyball coach at Pepperdine University. He did all the Olympic commentary of the volleyball matches in the Olympics. He's doing all kind of computer programming stuff right now for voice automated computer systems for people who can't otherwise operate that kind of situation. He's a very interesting guy, and this injury has given him all this, which will be the point of the 2-hour piece.
And do you have any idea when it will air?
Well, the way I figured, if the network likes it, it'll air in September. and if they don't like it so much, maybe later. But I'm hopeful, like I said. I would like to see this walk new ground, and I would like to take some chances with it. And I want it to be very memorable or very forgettable. I don't want it to be safe and in the middle, and I don't think it will be.
Yeah. It sounds like it could be another Brian song, something along
Well,
that.
I would like it if that was that successful. That would be great.
Yeah.
It's an important story, like I've said, and for a lot of years now I've thought that this would be an important one to be part of.
Okay. Now, to the real reason why you are here, Mark. These Coors commercials that you're doing are certainly unique, but going back to the very beginning, did they approach you, or did they look at a number of male actors, or how did it come about for you?
They looked at a number of actors, I think, and I was one of those. And it was a general call, a specific general call as far as my agent was concerned. I mean, she chose specifically to have me go in and talk to these people. And it was a long process, maybe 3 or 4 months, from when I first went on that initial meeting and did some work on screen for them, and then there was some time, and then more interest, and back and forth. And when it finally came to the point where Coors was interested in me doing these spots, I then talked to them and said, okay, well, prove to me that, in fact, we say this in one of the commercials, prove to me that what I'm going to be saying is true, and then we'll talk. And I did. I mean, I learned. I went to Colorado, up to Golden, and Gary Nafee showed me around for 2 days and took me through every process of the brewing facility there, and convinced me without a doubt that what I was going to be saying was true. And I walked away from there convinced that this was a progressive company, headed up by a bunch of real regular guys who I got along with, and at the same time we're trying to change, and we're doing something that I felt was very exciting. And we're part of a team concept that they were inviting me to be part of. I mean, it's a real family group up there, and all the distributors that work for them, feel that same concept. And I was excited to be part of that. And I think these commercials, I mean, these commercials have really been accepted well, and the wave of interest that it has caused, both commercially, both for Coors and in me as an actor, is real interesting for me to watch, because I've done projects that I'm real proud of that maybe people never see, and I've now done 9 commercials for Coors that everyone's talking about. And perhaps career-wise for me, I'm as proud of them as anything I've done.
When fans see you now, do they yell, "Hey, Coors," or what do they say?
They usually yell, "2 hills over," or they yell "Coors is the one," or whatever. And that's the reality of it. I mean, you forget that sometime. I mean, a Saturday afternoon when you haven't shaved in 2 days and you're at the supermarket, and someone will come up and pop a cold one into your hand. That's nice. I enjoy that. I mean, it's really captivated people. I mean, the whole process of it being somewhat different advertising and the story to be continued has got people wondering, placing bets, I mean, whatever, where's this guy going to show up next and what are they going to talk about next? And the interest is pretty much, just escalating and getting better all the time. I enjoy it very much, but it's a team. I mean, from the director who puts them together to Gary Nafee at Coors to the Foot Cone and Belding advertising people to put together the copy. I mean, it's very much a team effort, and we're trying real hard to keep the concept as clear as it's been in the past.
How did this go over with the producers of St. Elsewhere?
I kept them posted from the beginning, and told them even before there had been any offer, from the initial point of interest, I let them know about what my plans were, and even when it came to the point of Coors wanting me to do these, I went to them first. That's where my contract says I got to be, and at the same time, I was interested in having their clearance for such. They were only too pleased, and at the same time, I think it's a great product and a great set of commercials.
Was there ever a moment when you thought about the fact that now there is such an emphasis, a campaign against drunk driving and drinking while driving and all that? And was there ever a thought, Mark, that where you said, now, I wonder what this will do to my image as an actor? These fans who love me on St. Elsewhere, I wonder when they see me doing a beer commercial, if they're going to feel differently towards me.
Well, Bobbie, I think about that sometimes because as an actor, I'm careful about what kind of roles I play. I mean, I'm a role-conscious individual. I'm also an actor, and my job is to take the make-believe and to make it real if I can, and make it believable if I'm good. I think what people ascertain from television has something to do with freedom of choice, and that has to do with the type of programs they watch and the type of beer they drink. I don't particularly see any parallel between the two. I do think that for what these commercials are, I mean, I'm not sitting in a party somewhere talking about having 15 beers before I jump in a car. This is somewhat classy stuff, and the whole campaign has to do with difference and quality and a different brewing procedure that makes Coors better than the next. And that I'm proud of. And as an actor, I can be proud of that too, performance-wise. So to that question, my basic thought is, hey, I'd like to please everybody, but I gave up a long time ago thinking I could do that.
These commercials, as unique as they are, they appear to me that they maybe weren't the easiest commercials for you, the spokesperson, to do. Now tell me about the first one. You're up there, you're really up there on a mountain someplace, aren't you?
We were up at the top of Loveland Pass, which is, I guess, close to 12,500 feet, something like that. And it was very cold. I mean, I don't know what it was, but it was, for a California boy, it was cold. and the little things you don't think about when you have your jacket unzipped and you're casually walking along this terrain there, and people at the end of the commercial, when the snow gusts up all around me, they think, oh, they had a fan off camera. There was no fan. That's the way it was blowing all day like that. Yeah, they've been rough shoots, but at the same time, they've been my kind of shoots, which is that, I mean, everybody who's been a part of these commercials has worked just as hard as I've worked on them, and everybody has been up there in the same elements that I've been in. And yet, it's the kind of atmosphere that me, Mark Harmon, that me, spokesman for Coors, is the most happy in. I mean, if you put me in a coat and tie and put me inside a room somewhere and have me do a hard sell, there'd be nobody buying any beer. But the point is, I'm comfortable in those kind of surroundings. I mean, it's real normal, real regular. I'd like to think of this guy as someone you might find in a nice pub somewhere, sitting on the stool next to you. I mean, that's supposed to be the way you feel about this, and I feel real comfortable with it. I mean, I get intrigued by the shoots and the locales. I mean, every time I get a new commercial spot, I look at where we're going to be this time. I say, that's great. Okay, we'll go do that. I mean, I love Colorado. I've always loved Colorado. Someday I want to build a house there. So to have a job now where it pulls me back to areas around Golden, Colorado to do commercial spots for a beer that I enjoy drinking, for a company that I like being a part of, and they're paying me. I mean, I find that just absolutely funny.
What about the one now where you're walking along the road? See, we see those commercials, or people see them, and the commercial is 30 seconds long, or even a minute, and you think, boy, I bet Mark just could knock that off, in about 10 or 15 minutes.
They should have been there. Yeah, it wasn't 10 or 15 minutes. That was a real interesting acting problem for me, if you will. I mean,